What's up, everybody? Impromptu live here, last minute live. If you're not catching it live, that's on me. Not a ton of notice, but this thing dropped tonight. Everybody and their mom is sending it to me. And I mean that legitimately because that's most of my audience here. But we are going to break down this Paul O'Keefe interview. I've got a lot of thoughts on it. Some you may like, some you may not. Let's just remember to keep the chat appropriate and respectful and think about what the O'Keefe family has lost, regardless if we agree about how they see the case. Let's make sure we keep that in mind in how we talk about this case and react to it. But we're still going to be honest. We're going to look at it through the lens, legally speaking, what we think was proven, what we think was right, wrong, what happened on the outside of the courtroom, all that and more. We're going to break it down tonight. If you're watching it later, please let me know what you think about in the comments, what questions you may have had. Watch this at a later time, but we're going to get to it. So hit that like button so everybody else that wants to see it can see it, that didn't know or didn't get alerted, because I didn't know I was doing this until about 10 minutes ago. But we're here. We're ready. Let's get into it. Yeah, Mary Smith said, so many videos lately. Thanks for the updates. Yeah, so much is going on. I did not want to do a live tomorrow on 4th of July. I'm going to be chilling. It's a full day off. I did record something earlier today to play tomorrow. So, hey, you're not going to miss me. I'm still going to be there. And those of you that are sick of me, just skip it. Actually, stop in, hit the like button first, and then go on to the next one. But this was just, when I watched it, and I'm going to make myself small here. When I watched it, I was like, this is really interesting, because before I saw it, my initial thought was, oh, so maybe the Commonwealth and the O'Keefes are going to literally take a page out of the Karen Read book and go to the media and tell their story through the media. And as I watched this interview, that's exactly what it felt like. They're saying, you know what? It's our turn. She's been doing this. She's been turning the narrative. It's our turn. And I don't know how that makes me feel. You know, I really don't know how that makes me feel. And what I wanted to know from this is, why are the O'Keefes so hell-bent that it was Karen Read? Why do they believe with everything inside of them that Karen Read did this? And I believe that to be the case, especially for Paul and his mom. I'll just say that because that's kind of who he talks about. So why do they believe that? Are we going to get those answers in this interview? I believe we did. I believe we did get those answers in this interview. So we're going to break that down. Are they going to really push? Is this trial really going to happen again? Even everything that happened with Proctor, we get that answer. How many times are they willing to do this? We get that answer. And what does he think about Proctor and Lally and the evidence in this case? We get those answers. So we are going to go through this. We are going to break it down respectfully. When we agree, when we disagree, it's going to be from how we view it. We're not going to pull any punches necessarily, but we're also not going to call him a scumbag jerk off because he thinks Karen Read is guilty, because that's his prerogative. He says in here he knows a lot more about the case than we do. And I'll just say, instead of the collective we, I'll just say he knows more about the case than I do. Well, that was weird. I did these and it gave me a thumbs up on the screen, but he knows more about the case than I do. He knows the players a lot more than I do. He knows these people. I agree with him there. I'm just talking about my view on what my verdict would have been, came completely from what happened in the courtroom, period. And he has a lot of things to say that are affecting his opinion from outside the courtroom, which I think a lot of people do. So that's fair too. So let's get to it.
First question is obvious. Just how are you doing? How's your family doing?
I mean, we're doing all right, hanging in there. It's been a long, painful 2.5 years. And I mean, with the mistrial that happened the other day, obviously wasn't ideal, but if we have to do it again, we'll do it again. So we're ready to go.
Did you?
Well, you have to do it again because there was no verdict that time. So he said, we have to do it again. We'll do it again. And they are ready to go. More on that is coming.
Prior to jury deliberations, ever think a mistrial was even possible?
I kept everything was on the table, I guess, but obviously hoping and confident that we were going to get the conviction that we were looking for. So as far as a mistrial,
they were confident they were going to get the conviction. Every side was confident in this case somehow.
Oh, yes, it's something we didn't want, obviously, but you know, it's just a bump in the road, and like I said, we'll do it again. We'll do it as many times as we have to.
You'll be back in court every day for another long trial.
Absolutely.
They'll do it as many times as they have to. So more hung juries, more retrials, they'll be there. And he's going to talk about the comment on his way out of court after the verdict was read.
How are your parents?
They're doing all right. That's more of my concern, is that they have to go through this again. I mean, I'll do it 10 more times if I have to, but I hate the fact that they have to go through this all again. We don't know where it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. But I mean, overall, they're doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that does suck for victims. In criminal cases, it sucks for victims in civil cases. When we get cases continued or a mistrial, like when I had that jury panel that busted and I had to go back and tell my client, we were all ready, you got all geared up, 9 months now, we've got to wait till the next trial. It sucks. So I feel for him. I feel for his parents. They've been through a lot of tragedy in their life, more than anyone should have to go through. Parents should not be burying their children. And they've had to do it multiple times. So I feel for them, regardless of how they view the case. I really, truly feel for them.
And they have John's kids now too, or your sister's kids.
Yeah. So yeah, they're living in my brother's house in Canton. Raising my niece and nephew, who are 16 and 13. I wanted them to come down here and live with us, but my niece didn't want to leave Canton, didn't want to leave her friends, didn't want to leave her house, and kind of hard to force a kid who's been through as much as they've been through to kind of shake up their world, for I guess a third time.
Yeah, I mean, can you just talk about Kaylee and Patrick? I mean, they, because we didn't put them on camera or anything, of course, during the trial, I had a lot of people ask me, like, what were they like? And they seemed like, for a reason, very, very strong kids.
They're great kids. They're strong kids. They're resilient kids. They have every excuse in the world not to be good kids. My niece Kaylee, super strong. When asked if she wanted to testify, we told them they didn't have to, and she said absolutely she wants to. She wanted her voice heard, her story heard. Wanted people to listen to her. She felt like because she was 14 at the time, that no one wanted to listen to her. So she was.
A couple people are saying it's quiet. I'll bump it up here. Brutally sad for the kids. Brutally sad for the kids. And K-Rab, I'm not saying there's more to the case than what came out of trial. What I'm saying is there's definitely more to his opinion than what came out of trial. There's more as to why he feels so strongly the way that he feels than what came out in trial. And we're going to hear that.
Strong and insisted on doing it. And my nephew was, he wanted to support her. So he said, if she does it, I'll do it. So I'm proud of them both for doing what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. They were really strong when they got on the stand. It was amazing.
And maybe that was one of the big key factors for the people that were going to vote guilty is the kids and the family all against Karen Read. We don't know, right? We haven't heard from the jurors, so we don't know. Jama said, do you believe the jurors and the families are basing their judgment on the sole fact that he was a law enforcement? The evidence from my point of view just don't add up. We don't know, right? We're going to have to wait and see exactly why they were deadlocked and digging in for different reasons if they ever come out and talk. Anything now would just be guessing.
Amazing. Do you feel comfortable telling me, just from all that you've learned over the last 2.5 years, like what you think happened that night?
Oh, we know what happened. We know that Johnny and Karen were arguing. It was kind of towards the end of their relationship. Things weren't well. They were drinking and arguing and fighting. And
so that's his motive. Near the end of the relationship, they were arguing and fighting. And this is kind of what led to what happened that night. And he's going to give us his opinion on what happened that night. The issue is there's other instances of them fighting. There's other instances of her being jealous. There's other instances of them drinking, and none of it led to this. So it is interesting to me that they fully believe that that is the motive for her purposely doing this. So that's interesting, but he definitely feels it. And I think we get a good explanation as to why here at the end of this answer.
In an intoxicated state of rage and jealousy, she just decided that she was going to do something about it, and put the car in reverse and ran him down and left him there to die. And we figured it out as soon as
So that's what he thinks happened. But here is when they figured it out. And this is also incredibly important when you think about Proctor's timeline, law enforcement's timeline. This is when they figured it out. And I'm going to throw a word out there, not to be disrespectful, because again, I have argued with people about making decisions based off this in the past as well, but this screams vibes to me a little bit. Like they are positive because of the vibes the next morning that they got.
And we figured it out as soon as she left the house that day when she came over. We didn't talk to any investigators, state police, nobody. My mother had said, do you think she has something to do with this? And I said, we're not going to think like that. Went outside to the driveway to look at her car, and her car was gone. It was a blizzard. I knew what the driving conditions were like coming from the hospital to Canton. And I knew that they were going back to Dighton, which is a much further drive. Mm-hmm. So we put it together pretty quickly.
I was going to ask you that next. So you took the words out of my mouth. It was like, when did you realize? It was literally that morning.
Yeah. So I would say early afternoon when they came back to the house. She wanted to come over and see the kids. Didn't really interact with them at all. Was there for probably a total of 30 minutes. Didn't say much or anything. And half of her time was upstairs gathering her things.
So we heard some of this in the trial, and it was obvious why they were trying to say it. But what wasn't as obvious to me is this right here, everybody watching and listening, this right here, to me, is a situation where her actions that morning, what she did at the house, what she did do and didn't do, what she did say and didn't say, who she did speak to and didn't speak to, that is what confirmed in their mind that it was her. I mean, think about that. That's really what it feels like throughout this interview.
Then my wife spoke to her on the phone on their way back to Dighton, and she told my wife that just have to remember the bad times, and I don't think I'm ever going to talk to you guys again.
Was that phone call what made you sure of what had happened?
Absolutely, yeah. We already, like I said, we put the pieces together on our own.
So again, he says the stuff about we put the pieces together, but he never digs in and explains what that actually means. But the cryptic phone call from Karen Reed and her actions after John O'Keefe passed are really what locked it in for them. I find that so interesting because, and again, for the people that are going to say he's lying, he's a liar, look at this, look at that. I don't think he's lying. I think he truly believes what he's saying. I think maybe he's force-fitting some puzzle pieces. Maybe he doesn't want to see some things that are obviously bad, like we're going to talk about later with Proctor. And maybe he's, painting this picture to make it fit, because I think he and his family believe, based on her actions, that phone call, some statements made, maybe what the kids were saying about how they were fighting, it all clicked together in a few hours. And from that point on, they were only going to see one result. I will just tell you, this is not unusual. This happens all the time with victims, especially when you're fed a story by law enforcement and by the prosecutors, and they keep reinforcing it and telling you they found this evidence. You want this to be true. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and blame him or say he's stupid or he's an idiot or any of this stuff. I'm not going to say any of that. I do think it's interesting that that is the most concrete thing he's giving us as to why they believe it was her. And then he says stuff like, we put the pieces together later. Not positive what that means. He does mention some evidence that we'll talk about, but it's really interesting to me.
Really solidified it. Mm-hmm. Why would somebody say that? Why would someone say, if you didn't do anything, why would you say you're never going to talk to us again? Or why do you have to remember the bad times? Almost like justifying what you did.
Right. How would you have expected her to act in that situation if she hadn't done something?
More sad, empathetic, sympathetic, but
And again, that's where I get like the vibes feeling. And again, I don't mean that it sounds a little disrespectful. I don't mean it disrespectfully, but it's like, it really feels like they were like, we got bad vibes. That next day, the time following, the call, the lack of communication, we just got bad vibes. And how many people in the chat, honestly, and I get it, and you guys know where I ended up, okay? You guys know where I ended up on this case. But how many of you have made a call, an important call, and a gut feeling, or you believe you're right, regardless of what some people say, even if you trust those people? I do think there is room for that in here, right? And I think we've all, and I know I have, where like a gut feeling is really hard to overcome. And once you get in there and something as big as this, it can be really tough to overcome that.
like I said, when she was at the house, she barely said a word.
Mm.
You know, she wanted to be there for the kids. My nephew
Weird that he said she wanted to be there for the kids. That was weird to me.
came home. My niece was already home by the time she got there, and her family arrived. And I sat down, my nephew in the other room, she sat right next to him. I explained to him that JJ's, something happened and he's no longer with us. She didn't say a word. And right after that, she went upstairs and started gathering her belongings. And the next thing you know, they were gone.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's hard. It's a strange behavior.
Very strange. Yep.
When did the whole narrative of her version of events become known to you?
Yeah, Matt, I don't disagree with this either. Like, they want to have justice. They want to have a bad guy. I don't blame them for it. I deal with victims literally every single day. Sometimes of crimes, sometimes of actions that are not technically criminal, but people still hurting them either by negligence or intentional torts. And it's a lot easier for closure when you know who did it, you know who's to blame, they admit it or you prove it. It makes a huge difference.
Well, if you remember her first arraignment in Stoughton District Court,
Yeah.
her attorney, David Unetti, had said this is a tragic accident. His client had no criminal intent.
Mm-hmm.
And then, fast forward to, I guess, when Alan Jackson came on board. And, they teamed up with a blogger to get their story that they concocted and put together and flooded out there. And people,
again, he mentions what they do through the media, getting their story out there. And to me, this seems like a direct counter to that. Honestly, it does. I'm not blaming him. I'm just calling it like I see it. And that was literally my first thought is, oh, wow. Okay. Because I had heard stuff about, people going out and doing stuff with Karen Reed, obviously her lawyers, the courthouse steps, doing stuff for the cameras, whatever. But I hadn't heard anything about, the O'Keefes doing something like that. And I also didn't watch the arraignment. I didn't watch any of the pretrial, so I don't know if Unetti said that or if Jackson changed it. I've also heard rumblings Jackson might not be around for round 2. How's that going to affect the trial? I don't know. But I definitely think that this is not the last we're going to hear from people in this group or this corner.
people are only hearing one side of the story and coming to conclusions before actual evidence in the trial had actually begun.
So again, I got to push back a little bit here on him. He says, he's blaming people that are coming to conclusions before seeing the evidence at trial. It seems like he's coming to conclusions, at least with additional information or stuff that didn't come out in trial, or he's dismissing or belittling certain things that came out in trial. So people do that, right? People come to conclusions in different ways. Different things are important to different people. So we have to be careful if, we're throwing stones from a glass house. I think we have to be careful and realize that a lot of different things affect different people differently in making their decisions.
So a lot of the public was misinformed, because they were only getting one side of the story. And, we didn't come out and tell our side of the story or, what we.
So that obviously changed when we heard the trial, right? Like a lot of the public may have been misinformed, but then when they heard the trial, they get the legitimate evidence that's reliable and relevant that comes out. Now, I think he could say the same thing, confirmation bias. People had already come to their conclusion and they were going to see it the way they were going to see it. And I get it. And he may very well be right about that for the people that knew and had made up their mind at the beginning of trial. But then again, he mentions about how they get their story out there. They got their narrative. Is that what he's doing now?
We didn't come out and tell our side of the story, or what we thought or knew happened. We've kept a low profile and have been silent through this whole ordeal. But now it's time. Now it's time for people to understand the truth.
It's time for them to tell their story. It's their turn. This is really what I think the point of the interview was.
And the jurors, we thank them. They did a great job. They put in a lot of hours, paid a lot of attention, worked hard. Unfortunately, they weren't able to come to a consensus as far as a verdict goes, but we have another chance at it, and hopefully the jury that we get for the second time around will we'll see things more clearly.
So just so I'm clear,
they'll see things more clearly. Again, one of the issues is it wasn't presented in a very clear way, and I think that is an issue for every jury if this is how it's going to be presented.
You think this all started when Alan Jackson showed up, and Karen, throughout the course of this trial, you think she knows what she did?
She knows exactly what she did, and she's trying to buy and lie her way out of this, refusing to take accountability for her actions. Not only that, but pointing the finger.
And is anybody surprised he hates her if he thinks that she did this to his brother on purpose? Like, that's what he believes. That's what he thinks, okay? So I think anybody would struggle not to hate somebody they thought killed their brother intentionally, right? And then you can understand why Karen Reed may hate them, because she believes she's innocent and did nothing wrong. He doesn't think she believes that, but she believes that. And so she hates the people that are going to blame her and put it on her. So the hate between them, I understand. The hate from somebody like me, I would not understand. If I hated either one of these two people, that would be weird.
And blaming innocent people.
Yeah, talk to me about that. I mean, because the thing is, it's the story on the defense's side is not just, oh, she didn't do it. It's she didn't do it and all these other people did.
Yeah, I mean, she's pointing the finger at everybody. Everyone's lying except for her, according to her. I think we had 67 witnesses testify. 68, I'm sorry,
That's
testify.
right.
So, I mean, again, and we've been through this, and I even said it like, oh, is everybody really lying? They made it pretty clear. It wasn't everybody. It wasn't 68. There were certain people they didn't cross, certain people that actually helped them. But it was a pretty large group of people.
And according to them, they're all lying and they're not credible. And, which, I mean, there's first responders that were just doing their job that day. Jen McCabe, Kerry Roberts, all they did was pick up the phone and help because she was asking for help. And according to them, the only one telling the truth is her.
Right. So I don't even know what to call them. We have a variety of names. The pink people. They turned on all those people first. Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe. But then
I could be wrong, but I believe the pink people are Karen Reed supporters. I believe that is one of the names they go by. Cora said, I have so much empathy for the O'Keefes. I agree. John really has been forgotten and needs to be remembered for the amazing man he was. Based on the trial, I can't agree with him. Sadly, because of Proctor, I don't believe we will ever have a clear answer. And Cora, this was a beautiful message. Thank you for sending it. And that's pretty much where I am. I feel horrible for them. I understand the misery and pain and grief they're going for can make them feel this way. But I also have to be honest with myself, and what I saw, I did not see any clear answer, and that has to be not guilty. The only answer I feel confident about is that the way the evidence was presented, that she didn't hit him with a car. Like I feel horrible for them because I don't feel like there is a clear answer and they deserve one.
They treated you guys over the course of the last year and a half.
Well, if you just go back to any video of us walking into court during pretrial hearings, yelling, screaming, calling us names.
Like, again, I just think that's totally uncalled for. I don't think that's necessary. I don't know why people would do that. Even if you disagree with them, they believe she did it. These people believe she didn't do it. I believe the Commonwealth absolutely didn't prove it. But this doesn't do anything to promote anything positive in the case, anything good about justice. There are going to be multiple people in every trial that see the trial different ways, even when people can't believe it. That's going to happen. We've got to be able to work through that as a society and as civilized people.
I to this day, I don't know what I did wrong. I get messages all the time, whether through Facebook or other ways of communication, telling me that I'm a moron, I'm stupid, need to open my eyes and all this stuff. But I ignore those. I don't really care what people say to me because this isn't about me. This is about my brother. And I like to think I know a little bit more of what's going on in the case than, people that are just reading stuff on the internet.
And I think he's absolutely right. One of the things, though, I would push back a little bit is I think a lot of people know now everything that came out in trial, everything that the jury saw, who are the ultimate decision makers when it comes to the facts. So while before the trial, that could be very true. Now I think the playing field's been leveled a little bit about what people know and don't know.
And there's been things said about me, accusations about me, all types of things that just aren't true. But again, I just brush it off because this isn't about me.
So if these people buy into this big conspiracy, right, that Brian Albert's a murderer or whoever, okay, if they buy into that, why are they turning on you guys? Has that ever made sense to you?
Because we don't believe in a crazy conspiracy theory that holds no merit, no evidence. I mean, we know these people. I mean, Jen McCabe has been a family friend of ours. She was friends with my sister. We've known her for over 10 years. She was very helpful with, picking Kaylee up to and fro when he took over raising the kids. Kerry Roberts, we've known for a very, very long time, right? And at the time, she didn't really know Jen McCabe or any of the McCabes or Alberts. And her testimony corroborated everything that Jen said. And the defense, I think, was scared of her and didn't even want to ask her any.
Again, she wasn't there that night, right? So she corroborated the events in the morning. But she wasn't there that night. She didn't say she saw Karen's car. She didn't say she walked right by the lawn and didn't see a body. She didn't say who was or was not in the house. So the important details, I agree, I thought she was credible, but the important details, she was not a witness to them.
Questions, they just wanted her off the stand. And I guess the negative or hate,
they didn't question her, they just wanted her off the stand. Again, another way to look at that is they didn't think she hurt them or they thought she was beneficial to them, which I don't know that that was the case with her, but there are multiple ways of looking at everything. That's an important factor.
That's directed towards me, mostly me and my mother, is because we support these people who are being falsely accused of something they didn't do, right? And their lives have been turned upside down and partially ruined. Colin Albert.
So one of the issues with this too, and he's going to go through this, and I agree with him, if these people did nothing wrong and they're being accused of things, that sucks. And that's horrible, and you should support them. In a similar way, a lot of people believe that's what's happening to Karen Reed. And so they support her. And I think everybody can be kinder about it. Everybody can be more gracious about it. How we treat people would be good, especially if we take, what John O'Keefe did and how he was selfless and, did the hardest thing and changed his life to help other people. I think we should not try to bring people down with our words and our actions. But at the same time, I think we need to point out wrongdoing and fight for justice. And if people do something wrong, they should be punished.
Albert, who was a 17-year-old kid at the time, his life has been turned upside down and ruined. I've gotten to know the Alberts through all this, and they're all good people. So just because we don't believe in a crazy conspiracy theory and we believe that Karen Reed is guilty of killing my brother, they take it on us.
Doesn't it feel...
So again, we don't believe a conspiracy theory. We think she killed our brother. That's absolutely what they believe. But I don't believe she ever asked about experts. I don't believe that they talk at all about scientific evidence, right? in a lot of what you guys are bringing up, he's not commenting on that. It's almost as if he's saying they just paid these people to say whatever they wanted. And that's how they got these answers. Because that's really what you have to do to end up in his chair, is dismiss certain evidence and facts and math and physics. I believe that. He states we had 67 witnesses. If that makes the state's theory credible, what does he think about the FBI hired a reconstructionist? Well, he does comment on the FBI investigation, not the reconstructionists, but on the FBI investigation. And I agree with you. Just because there were 67 witnesses doesn't mean they were necessary or all beneficial or consistent.
Sometimes like your brother's forgotten in all of this.
Absolutely. All the time. It's turned into the Karen Reed show. You know, she walks through a crowd that cheers her on. She goes out in public, takes pictures, signs autographs. She's just living her life like nothing's ever happened.
I do agree that it definitely felt like it turned into the Karen Reed show.
And meanwhile, my brother's been gone for almost 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And I just want people to go back to who the victim is in this. It's not her. It's my brother.
What do you want?
Well, again, she and a lot of these people believe that she was wrongly accused of a crime. That is victimizing somebody. And again, I realize he doesn't believe it. But it's like, that's why I like to, and again, it's much easier for me to do this. My brother did not die in all of this. It's not my family. So I do understand that. But I like to put myself in somebody in the other person's shoes, right? Try to see it their way. So it's like they believe she's innocent. They believe she's the victim. I get it. We believe John O'Keefe is the victim and that she did it. And try to see it the other people's ways. Then you can ask them to try to see it your way and then say, okay, we've got to rely on a jury and see what a jury does.
I want people to know about John. You call him Johnny. Kids call him JJ.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my older brother. So, I mean, generous, loyal, sometimes a pain in the ass to me. Oh, I'm sorry, pain in the butt to me.
You can say pain in the ass.
You know, just because he was my older brother, but he just was there if you needed him. Took care of the people that he loved. Good-hearted guy who didn't deserve any of this. You know, he rearranged and uprooted his life. Went from a single the bachelor lifestyle living in Boston to moving into instant dad role. Mm-hmm. And you know, that's something that obviously everyone admires him the most for, and I do too. You know, it wasn't easy for him at the beginning, but you know, he learned to figure it out, and you know, we all helped as much as we could without getting in the way. Just an overall good guy.
And I assume he chose to do that, right? I mean, your sister's situation is unimaginable.
Yeah. So then, well, after my brother-in-law passed away, we had to figure out, all right, what do we do? And at the time, my wife and I were like, all right, we'll take them in. At the time, we had a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. So we were trying to figure out how are we gonna do this? Our house was small. We didn't really want to live in the house that they both passed away in, but we were trying to figure it out the best way possible. And then Johnny just stepped up one day and just said, I got it.
Wow.
And then pretty much moved in the next day and took it from there for 8 years.
So there's a reason that's why so many people describe that's what they admired about him.
Yeah. I mean, a selfless act, changing your life, you know, to take care of his family and people he loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. Like, that's a testimony right there. Have you listened to the 911 call? They flipped J.O. over. JM says he got out of the car. JM referring to J.O. as a man, not my friend, or LEO. I don't remember that specifically. Tracy, could what he's saying in this interview be used for the defense if they retry it? Potentially, but I really don't think he's saying anything that is going to be used against him or impeach him or anything like that. Will you review the motion in filings like in limine and let us know what new or amended motions might be filed based on the outcome of this trial. So, Joe, I'm probably not going to go backwards and review all that again, but I will try to keep track now of hearings and things that happen going forward from now. Peter, do you think they're ready to make money? AJ said he will be back. Karen didn't tell her story and she has to close some holes. God bless this mess. I don't know. I don't think they're doing it for money. I think they're honestly trying to push back at the narrative and hope that they have less people that already think Karen Read is innocent before they show up for jury duty or to talk about the case potentially. Why didn't he testify to her character, etc.? He would not be able to be called and just testify to her character like that. That's not admissible. Peter, have you watched The Judge? Your thoughts? Is that the one with Bryan Cranston? I don't think I've seen it. I'm watching Presumed Innocent right now with Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm a couple episodes in and I like it. Peter, if the O'Keefes have a strong stance, would they should or be able to hire the best lawyer? For what? I need a little bit more context for that. They can hire whatever lawyer they want. Yeah, they can hire whatever lawyer they want. They can hire a PR team. There's nothing really that they're limited to. Peter, can this be used on retrial by parties? Potentially, Azam, but I just don't see anything in here that really is usable. Did he say something unnecessary to Karen on that last day? Let's keep listening, Sue, because he answers that question.
I mean, that's him in a nutshell.
I know I asked you how your mom's doing already or how your parents are doing, but I just can't imagine for her losing 2 kids.
No.
Is she like a different person now?
She's a strong woman. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unimaginable, just to lose them in the ways that she did. My sister suffering for 5.5 months with brain cancer.
Yeah.
But at least had the opportunity to say goodbye. And then, with my brother just being taken from us so quickly and senselessly, I don't know, somehow she keeps it all together. My father, quiet, kind of keeps to himself.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, overall, what they've gone through it's unfair.
Yeah.
It's unimaginable. But they're strong and they keep moving forward, and just same thing. They do what they have to do to take care of the family.
I have to ask you, we got ushered out of the courtroom pretty quickly on Monday. You had a little
Here it is. Here is what was the comment you made to Karen Read?
exchange with Karen. Do you mind? What happened there?
So throughout the trial, she likes to turn and look at me and smirk. She's never once made eye contact with my wife, Erin.
Yeah, Crimey Witch. I don't know. I've heard rumblings of stuff like this. I haven't seen it. I just don't know. But let's hear what he says.
So when the mistrial was announced, she turned and looked right at Erin and gave her a smirk, and then went over and hugging and celebrating to some extent. And I just said, you're not done yet.
Did she say something back?
No, but I mean, it was an emotional.
You're not done yet. I think people thought he said, I'm not done with you yet. Something to that effect, like, we're doing this again. We're not backing down. Get ready for round 2.
Emotional day, emotional moment, being in that courtroom, sitting so closely. And that's something that she wanted.
Yeah, can you talk about that? I mean, the courtroom switch, we know all the legal reasons why it happened, but
yeah, I mean, we know the legal reasons, like those pesky laws of fairness, fundamental fairness, the defendant's right to confront witnesses against her and for the jury to be able to see this stuff. Like, we know about the legal reasons. Can you tell us why you guys think they changed the courtroom? This is the type of stuff I don't really love. It's like they're saying Karen wanted to be close to them. That's why she asked for the change of courtroom. That's just very strange. That could be true, and she could be a complete like sociopath. But just those pesky legal reasons is what I'm leaning on. As seems like there was also some legitimate reasons for changing courtrooms. Doesn't seem so. I know so.
You guys were like arm's length from her for the entire trial.
Yep. I guess after a while, you just got used to it. But yeah, showing up every day, sitting that close to the person that took my brother away from us, it was not easy. It took a lot to not say anything. But again, it wasn't about me. We were there for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to get justice for Johnny.
What did Adam and Laura say to you guys afterwards? Like what?
Adam Lally, so she's talking about the prosecutors here.
Looking ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they were disappointed in the outcome, but like Adam said, he goes, "We're just going to do it again." He goes, "I'll start tomorrow." So
Oof, it'd be brutal to start tomorrow, but they're ready. They want to do it again. They can do it again. Do you think he's doing this to taint the new jury? I don't think so, but I think they are pushing back on some narratives and, especially pushing back maybe on some media reporting. And, if there was going to be a juror that showed up and just thought Karen Read was innocent, at least they would hear their side of the story, things like that. I mean, I definitely don't think he's trying to taint a jury, but I think he's trying to get people to hear what their story is and what their message is. And unfortunately, it's lacking a lot of, factual evidence and proof as to what he is saying happened. It's just kind of like, we know, trust us because we're the family of the victim. Peter, I can't even afford this, but you're losing your objectivity. Well, not sure it was necessary then to send this. But for money, Karen Read would be in jail. You taught us that. So I disagree. I'll a couple things on this. Number one, yes, the best lawyers cost a lot of money. So if you have more money, you have a better chance. But even the best lawyers can't win certain cases. If you're innocent and there's a lot of evidence on your side, yes, the best lawyers and money is going to give you a way better chance to win. Absolutely. But these best lawyers and money didn't even pay for the two best experts in this case for the defense, in my opinion. And the two people that I rely on most for where I found that there was reasonable doubt in this case, they were hired and paid for by the FBI. So while I agree with you, money helps, money talks. The justice system is not fair to everybody equally, depending on how much money you have. I agree with you there, but I would not say that that's the only reason this case turned out the way that it did. Ardow said it's the Robert Downey Jr. Robert Duvall movie. I know exactly what you're talking about. No, I have not seen it. Wonder if Lally changes his mind, how he will feel. I don't think Lally's going to change his mind. I think this pretty much all but confirms it. Lally's 100% in. It's go time.
they're confident.
They're confident.
They have the truth on their side. Unfortunately, if you pay high-powered attorneys enough and put enough lies out there, you start influencing people to the point where there's just no turning back.
Mm-hmm.
I think people just don't want to admit that they were wrong or duped.
I mean, again, just trying to look at it both ways, right? I don't think he would admit that he was wrong or duped by law enforcement, or that maybe law enforcement was forcing the issue, or maybe they even forced the issue because the family thought Karen Read did it. I don't know. Nobody wants to feel like they were duped, right? Nobody wants to admit that they were wrong ever. So I agree with him, but I think that works for everybody that feels very confident in their position.
But they're confident, and we're going to go at it again.
He being Adam has been like, he's kept to himself a lot, similar to you guys over the course of this.
Yep.
Do you think that's been hard?
I'm sure it's been extremely hard on him. He's not the type that looks at social media or pays attention to that stuff. He just keeps his head down and does his job.
Good for him.
He's not the flashy attorney that wants to be on camera all the time and have press conferences on the stairs like some people.
And I get that people don't like that. And I get it's not everybody's cup of tea. And I get the pushback on all of that. But being an Adam Lally type of attorney does not just mean you're like a better person or, a grinder, and that's the best way to do it. It's like, it's not. Everybody has different styles. And I hate, when people demean other people, but I also hate when somebody's obviously very charismatic and good at presenting and does well with words and is a good orator and a lawyer and presents well and argues well and explains things in a way that are easy for a jury to understand, and getting a jury to see it your way. That's a skill that's important. And you should be praised for that, for doing your job well, right? Even if you're a little flashy, even if you make a lot of money, whatever it may be, to demean that person and say like, oh, the only way to be a good lawyer is like Lally. I'm not with that either.
He's just a hardworking, I guess nose to the grindstone kind of guy, and just does his job. It's a very difficult job. but he's never once really complained about it.
So I have no clue what this means, John. Not trying to be rude, assuming this is a negative comment based on that. But you're breaking it down weirdly. Reality law versus realist law. Don't lose objectivity. I have no idea what you're saying. Like, I don't blame the O'Keefe family for feeling this way at all. I don't blame them. I understand it. And I would have open dialogue. I mean, obviously they don't want to talk to me, but I'm saying anybody should be able to have open dialogue about this and talk about why they think they see it this way, and somebody should be able to see why they think they see it that way. I don't feel like this case is clear, cut, and dry. They do. And I think that the reason that they do is based on their interactions with Karen Reed after what happened. I don't think it's necessarily based on specific pieces of evidence or where the taillights were found or where the marks on the body were, anything like that. And it's easier for us to do this on the outside than for them because we're not emotionally connected to it. Doesn't mean we're right and they're wrong. It doesn't.
You know, to us anyway.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard on him. I know it's hard on Laura. I know it's been hard on everyone who's been involved in this. But everyone's determined that we're just going to do it again.
Has your circle of like the people who support you guys, has it grown? Has it gotten smaller over the course of all the noise outside of this?
So for me personally, I've kept my circle smaller.
Mm-hmm.
People that you were friends with or haven't seen in a while, you just don't know where their mind's at.
Yeah.
What they believe. So we've been forced to become very kind of like defensive, not as outgoing as we normally would be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think recently I think we're gaining.
That sucks. I mean, that sucks that this happens to you. This happens to your brother. And you feel like now you got to make your circle smaller. You got to be reclusive. You got to be defensive. Everybody's coming at you. That's horrible. That's horrible.
More support. I think people have been afraid, you know, to show up to court and I guess counter protest to the people that are outside. I think people have been in fear. But I think that's starting to turn. I think people want justice. They don't want this influence of, you know, social media and public perception based off of lies to, you know, to win or to take control.
So besides the lies part, right? Because I don't know, I'm sure there are some lies out there. I'm sure there are some truths, whatever it may be. So outside of that, I agree with it. We all want justice and we don't want it to be affected by social media, pressure, coercion, outside voices. None of us want that, or none of us should want that, I should say. We want the jury to go in there, look at the evidence, and make their decision based off that.
All of this.
Do you want people to show up with?
We'll take all the support we can get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, we're not going to turn anybody away. I mean, every time we go to court, you know.
I agree. I think there are multiple ways to look at this. I know where I stand, right? But I think there are multiple ways to look at this, and I get it and I understand it. People are going to base their decisions off different things. We heard comments about strongly held beliefs and morals and things like that. Until we hear from some jurors, we're just all kind of guessing as to how it turned out the way that it did, but it obviously wasn't a slam dunk. It seems like both sides were very confident, thought they were going to win. That's not unusual, but you know, here we go.
We're kind of portrayed as the bad guys.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day, it's, you know, we lost a loved one. You know, but somehow we're still, I guess, vilified for just not believing in a crazy conspiracy.
Yeah. On that note,
I get it, man. I get it. People, you're either all in or all out. And in this crowd, it's tough to try to see things both ways. Or if you don't see it exactly like somebody else, then, you know, you get hammered for it, whatever. I think it's a little bit strange. I think people go a little over the top with some of it. I really think it should not be coming at the victim's family. I don't see any positive or good or productive reason to come after the O'Keefe family. I just don't get it. I don't understand why people would do that. If you want to disagree with them, fine. But to berate them is just, it's wild to me. It really is sad.
Oh, was it hard for you at all? I mean, there were certainly some moments in the case where there were weak spots exposed, right? Like I think about the solo cups.
So she now is even like, there was some weaknesses in the case, right? And she tries to point out some weaknesses in the evidence, AKA reasonable doubt.
And Trooper Proctor, who now is facing job consequences as a result of this. What was it like for you to listen to those moments that weren't necessarily benefiting the state's case?
Well, as far as at the very early stages,
And listen to his answer, okay? Because this to me is indicative of how he looked at all the evidence in the case. And when I talk about when you got a juror and they're with you and you present evidence and you present arguments, they're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And if a juror's against you, they're going to be like, no. Listen to how he explains some of the obvious and major problems with the state's case. And they don't even talk about the defense experts. Red Solo Cups gathering evidence and Proctor, two major issues that I think everybody can agree on. Everybody except him, he does not agree on that. And again, I'm not going to yell at him or fight with him or get angry at him or hate him for that. It's just showing the way he sees the case.
I mean, a crime scene during a blizzard can't be an easy thing to navigate. And yet, you know, they found evidence, they found a sneaker, they found pieces of taillight, you know. Obviously, you're not going to see everything under a couple feet of snow.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they improvised the best they could. You know, every investigation is going to be kind of scrutinized to some degree. But, you know, they did what they had to do with what they had. And
he's like, I think they did a good enough job. I think they did a pretty good job with what they had. Man, yeah. And again, I can disagree. And I'll say, if I was accused of a crime and that was how they did the investigation, I would not think it was good enough. I would not say, well, it was a blizzard, so they didn't have to get any of the normal stuff or ways that they would gather evidence. Sure, they could just keep coming back for weeks. Like, I wouldn't be okay with it. But the way he's viewing it, he's like, I think they did the best with what they had. And I think we can obviously say, like, he's kind of on one side. The Karen Reed, you know, crowd is on the other side. The jury's supposed to come in there not knowing anybody from Adam. So I don't think they're just going to be like, nah, that investigation was fine, right? That's the point of the jury, is they're not just going to believe it the way you say. And I tell my client that because, you know, my clients come in and I'm like, yeah, I understand that's how you think it happened, and their parents and their brothers and sisters, and everybody agrees with them and their story. And I said, I get it, but we've got to convince a jury that doesn't know you of that. So we got to give them more. We can't just say conclusory statements. So this is a good indication, like example of how that works sometimes.
with the weather conditions being what they were, they just, like I said, had to improvise and do the best they could. As far as, you know, Michael Proctor's comments, I mean, he even said too they were unprofessional.
So here now, let's see what he thinks about Proctor.
As far as, you know, Michael Proctor's comments, I mean, he even said too they were unprofessional, which we agree with. But you know, this guy, his life's been ruined. You know, getting his personal cell phone, which was something that should never have happened. Josh Levy should never have been intervened in this. An FBI investigation. You should never have been.
I don't know who Josh Levy is. I think he has something to do with the FBI investigation, I guess. But so literally, yeah, it was unprofessional, but his life is turned upside down. This shouldn't have happened to Michael Proctor. Now he seems to be a victim in this case. I mean, that's tough for me. Like, no matter who you are, you should probably condemn the way Michael Proctor handled this investigation, talked about her, what he did, what he said. And it's like, just because he got caught and his phone got put out there, like, I get it. A lot of people probably say things that they're ashamed of on their phone and shouldn't, but a lot of people do things that are horrible and are ashamed of and wish they didn't. A lot of them are crimes. And we can't just say like, well, he should have never got caught. Like I don't know. That's a tough one for me. But again, this is how he's viewing it. He's like, investigation as good as they could have done. Proctor, yeah, he made some mistakes, but he's been vilified unfairly. FBI should have never been involved. It's interesting.
Intervened in this. An FBI investigation was launched due to cherry-picked evidence that was, or pieces of discovery that was only provided by the defense. Like, this is on this.
I wonder where he's getting that it's cherry-picked evidence, only what was given by the defense, as if the Commonwealth is not allowed to send an email or documents over to the FBI or send them more evidence. The FBI is watching the trial. They saw all the evidence that the Commonwealth has. the accident reconstructionists had all the evidence they needed to come up with their opinion. I don't know where that, I don't understand that. There are certain things I don't understand. Again, I'm assuming that he is talking to Lally and law enforcement, and they have their theories and things like that. So I understand he's probably getting it from somewhere like that, but it's hard for me to believe that Canton PD is so great and they would never have a conspiracy or a cover up, but the FBI, they should have never gotten involved, and now they're getting involved, and that's totally wrong and they shouldn't. It's a weird way to look at similar things, right?
This
It's
is
pretty
unheard of.
unprecedented.
To not even
Yeah, it's
speak.
unprecedented because the FBI doesn't usually just believe what defense attorneys send them or tell them, right? That's why it's unprecedented. These aren't the first defense attorneys to try to get the FBI to help with stuff.
To the Norfolk District Attorney's Office, not speak to the Mass Police to see what they have for discovery and evidence. Just to intervene himself in that way, and which casted, a shadow of doubt on the investigation. So I think
I agree, which is also why the FBI doesn't usually want to step in, because they know it has that effect. They don't just do it willy-nilly.
he has a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Yeah. Do you get updates on that?
I do not. I do plan on trying to sit down with him at some point.
Yeah.
Whether I got a knock on the door, I sent him an email, but I'm sure I won't get a response. But if I have to go knock on the door and ask for a sit down, that's what I'll do.
I think that's great. I think he should. And it would be weird if the FBI wouldn't talk to him. But I don't think they're going to say, like, based off what she said or didn't say to somebody, that's enough to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt necessarily. Corroborated with other things, maybe. Sure.
Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to make sure people know?
In all this, I just want people to remember the actual victim. I think I mentioned it before that it's not the Karen Reed show.
Yeah.
This is about a good man whose life was taken way too soon and for selfish reasons, and has created a void in our life that was already an enormous void, but just made it even that much bigger. And I just want people to remember him and want him to get the justice he deserves and that we deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Karen Reed going to prison.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I feel horrible for him, man. I just can't imagine what the O'Keefes are going through. And again, I think it's fine to disagree with how we view things and still feel bad for them. Like I do. I just can't imagine what it's like to be in his situation. I understand how, he could view things differently being on the inside versus us on the outside. I totally get that. Yes, Diana, I was saving it. Sorry, I was saving it. Diana, there was no way for the jury to hang on the lesser charges with the verdict form. Is that procedurally correct? It was essentially all or nothing if they agreed to not guilty on M2 and couldn't agree on the lessers. So procedurally, technically, it was what was done in the past and something that has been okayed by the higher courts and used in other trials. I don't think it is the best way to do it, as we talked about on that stream, but it is a procedurally correct way. And it was not guilty on the superior charge or the main charge, and the lesser included is all one line item. So there's no real way to split that up on that verdict form. Rare Gem, just watching. He said if he truly believes she intentionally murdered him, or if he thinks it was just an accident. No, he thinks it was intentional. John, so sad. 100% agree, man. It's brutal. I hate it. I hate that this happens to people in this family, man. They've been through so much. It's crazy. Tina, is J.O.'s brother a cop, or he really despises Karen Reed? I'm sure he despises her, and rightfully so. I get it if he believes she did this on purpose, right? I can understand that. Is he a cop? I don't think so. All right. I've already gone a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I appreciate you guys for joining me in this impromptu live. I know it was tough. I know we probably didn't agree with everything that, was being said or done in the interview, or what I said or did. So I get it. I appreciate you guys joining me. Hit that like button if you haven't already. And make sure you subscribe if you guys haven't subscribed, because we're going to keep putting out content and different things coming up. Make sure you check out our video coming tomorrow. And hope you guys all have a happy 4th of July. That's all we got. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.